Hello, true art believers. I was going to say what was it? Justin Bieber has a fan base of like his fans call them believers. I actually for like one microsecond, I was I said believers, and then it just went in this whole diatribe of weird rhetoric. Anyways, hello, true art believers, and welcome to today's installment of the Artist Interview Series. Today, I will be talking with Ryan Greis. Ryan's bio has changed a lot over the decades. That of lowbrow artist and illustrator, drawing instructor, and more recently, art detective. I want to know what that means. It's like the Sherlock Holmes of art, right? Today, he splits his time between tracking down missing masterpieces that have escaped some of the finest museums and institutions' periphery, and teaching his students the techniques of developing solid drawing skills. Before we start, make sure to hit the subscribe button and smash the notifications bell. Thank you, and enjoy the show. Was I muted?
No, I could hear everything.
Okay, because I just looked down on my screen. I saw muted there, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, did I just do a whole 1 minute and 30-second like intro?" And
at least people wouldn't hear that you're like a believer, right?
You're
fanboy of Justin Bieber.
You think that'd be like the first time I've done a bad intro, but that's like par for the course for me. Is this like totally,
we're winging it. It's all good.
Well, as I said, like after doing this so many times, I tend to mess up the intro. So that's what it is.
It's all good, man. How are you doing?
I am doing good. I am doing good. Ryan, I want to say thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. It's quite an intro. And I'm anxious to talk about a lot of the things that have happened, in changing course, changing direction for me over the past, 15 or more years.
So how would you like to start this? Because I had a small intro question that I was going to do first, but if you wanted
to start, do it. No, let's do it.
So I was pretty bummed today. I woke up at 4 a.m. and I did all these steps to get to my own artwork before everyone was awake.
Okay.
Because I had all these other things I had to do, and near later this evening, I was kind of bummed because I didn't get to do my daily drawing ritual that I stream every day.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm going to have to do this after my interview with Ryan Greis. And I was like, well, that could be anywhere. It could be like either anywhere from like 9 at night to 10 or 11 at night, depending on how long the conversation happens. So I wanted to know how you as an artist or you as an individual structure your day.
That's a great question. First of all, you're pretty committed to drawing after this. I'm sure I'll be out of breath and ready for bed.
It's going to be a hard one.
So bravo to you ahead of time. How I schedule my day. My day is different from day to day. I'm competing with some work hours with a 9 to 5, but I've got some flexibility with that. And then you add on top of that weekly drawing lessons that take up several afternoons and evenings of my week. So I'll tell you what, I have to be so kind of structured as much as possible to at least account for those classes or those lessons. But then, it's another thing. By the time I want to fit in some personal drawing time or painting or whatever, that's usually on the weekend. Because, like I said before, by the time I finish lessons, there's something that's kind of I've given everything I had, and I'm kind of tired after that. And so it's just some chill time before I go to bed. So that leaves just a wee bit of personal drawing time, on the weekends.
So when you're teaching, you said that you're exhausted. Um, I've mentioned that to my students as well, or I've also mentioned it to other people. I've tried the best that I can to excuse me, to explain it to my class, to my students, and
Yeah.
to my friends. And the closest I can come to explaining it to them is like, try sitting down and just doing math problems for 4 hours. You know, like, and you tell me how, if you're tired or not after that 4 hours of math problems.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've worked in my younger days. I've worked in a warehouse loading big boxes of wholesale groceries, and there's a level of tiredness that you have after that makes you want to pass out. And teaching and to your point, kind of using your head to do 4 hours of math problems, that gives you a different type of tiredness.
Yeah,
That is completely different than the physical, but it's tired nonetheless. So, yeah, I don't like to keep late nights. I'm 48 years old, and I can feel my body withering as I get older. And
yeah.
and I like my downtime. And after teaching and after drawing and working in the daytime, I'm done. I'm spent. But I also enjoy, a lot of my students are kids between the ages of 11 and 16, I'll say, and they love to learn, and so it's enjoyable. It's really enjoyable to teach someone that is there to learn, and can take something that you've asked them to do and put it on paper. It's really rewarding, and having taught for like 5 years, I think, it's one of those things that I'm starting to see results. The kids get older, whether they're still a student or not, and they're winning awards and getting recognition from the governor of Missouri, and they're winning their high school and grade school art competitions, and it's just really rewarding to know that I have some little part in that.
What would you say, like, some of the struggles you have with teaching?
Struggles. Oh man. Well, right now, I think one of the struggles is that I have some students that have been with me for over a year. And so it goes well beyond the initial curriculum that I built out to move students in and kick them out after 8 to 10 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to kick out students that are interested in learning. And so I have to kind of reinvent subject matter from week to week, but it also helps build up my curriculum. So I don't, it's a lot of effort, but it's a challenge to kind of keep kids engaged, keep students of all ages engaged of how can we go beyond, and how can I kind of hone and craft the curriculum around their specific needs. Kids, learn and improve at different rates. And so I don't want to develop a curriculum that's kind of overarching, but hitting kids differently. I want to develop curriculum that I can kind of craft to the specific students that I have at that time, and make sure that I'm not going too far ahead or lagging behind. I want to kind of work to their level to keep them engaged and keep them improving. We all, like, people that work out, you have those peaks and those valleys of when you're seeing improvements, but then sometimes you're phoning it in. I want to try to keep kids excited about coming to lessons. My studio's literally in the basement of my house, and so there's not a lot to it. It's pretty bare bones. So what's going to keep them coming here is just learning about things that interest them.
Do you think because you have because you do a lot of your teaching in your studio,
Mm-hmm.
There's I'm trying to figure out a way to word this better, but like a more genuineness or more professional feeling from the students, like they're seeing it, they're taking a look at your professional workspace and they're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, this guy means business. I'm gonna take him a little bit more seriously, while maybe in like other environments, like other like elementary, middle school, and high
Yeah.
school and college level environments, the students to see you go to a classroom. They don't. Some of them think that you're just here to teach, and you're not doing this outside. You know.
Well, I think that first of all, they're here voluntarily, and a lot of the sessions that I have are one-on-one. So
Yeah.
they're here voluntarily. They're in the spotlight. You know, they're drawing alongside me, and I'm able to look over their shoulder and catch things that we can talk about their work as they're drawing. So I think if anything, right now, I mean, I used to have a studio in the Central West End, and I loved it. It was just put together perfectly for me.
Yeah.
But I am exclusive to my home studio now, and so I mean, it sounds bad, but like the first time the students and the parents walk down the steps, they see my washer and dryer, and I'm sure they're like, oh my God, what am I getting myself into? So really, if anything, I have a lot to prove in that first session, and I think it comes out over the course of that session and just talking with them, finding out what they're learning at school in the way of art, what they're interested in, my teaching philosophy, and rarely do I have someone that calls up and says no thanks after class one. It's usually again, it's anywhere from 8 weeks to I have several students that I've had for more than a year now. So if they can get past the washer and dryer and the exposed ceiling and everything else, they know that we're here to learn, and I don't even critiques. The things that I've learned in the way of instructing and critiquing are things that I've brought from my days in college. I don't sugarcoat a lot of things. Like if we're talking about their artwork and opportunities to improve, we're pretty blatant and specific. So if the kids can handle that, then I think I really earn the respect. I've had several parents tell me that they like that I don't that I cut to the chase, and I'm not rude because that's not the way I was taught to be. But it's very constructive. There are always opportunities to improve work, and so I want my students to walk away knowing specific things that they can do to improve their drawings. So, yeah, it's. I guess I've trailed off a little bit, but
Go ahead.
To your point about professional and real, my studio is not the best not the best decorated or anything like that, but I have what we need, and we get down to business and draw. So they appreciate that.
I only know one artist who has probably the best looking studio.
Yeah, who's that?
I don't know if I want. Should I say names? Can I say names? I don't. I feel weird.
Well, if you're
names.
complimenting them, I would definitely.
I know one artist who has.
Well, describe the art. Oh yeah. I've seen her online.
Yeah, her studio. Woo! Oh gosh, it is beautiful.
Is it?
She like built a whole annex.
Yeah.
And it's like
yeah.
It's like I think it's 2 stories, and it's got like giant windows, to create lighting control.
Okay.
I've never seen it in person, but I saw photos of it constructed, and I was like, "Wow, that is a studio." Meanwhile, when I'm in,
the rest of the world,
I'm in my basement. That's probably got a humidity problem. I got a dehumidifier in there working working 24/7. I don't have enough room to store anything. It's dark.
Yeah.
Like no matter how many lights I have in there, it's dark. Which is why I switched to digital work, so I can kind of can still make work, but not actually take up more space.
Oh yeah, it's my studio is pretty much the opposite of Instagram friendly.
Yeah.
I've got 3 kids that I have partial custody of. So they're over here, and we're utilizing the basement for more than a studio. There's a hockey goal over there. So we've got a lot of activities that happen down here. So I've got to protect and move my easels and my monitor and everything else throughout the week. But that's real life, dude. That's I know what's behind that curtain. There's a lot of stuff behind that curtain that you don't want people to see. That it's just part of living life, right?
I could do a windmill and just knock everything down, like a Hollywood set,
Yep. No, I mean, this is the best part. My favorite part of my studio, because this is the part that doesn't move. It's got all my knickknacks and things that I treasure that I've collected over the years, and there's a curtain that covers it up so no one can hit a hockey puck into it. But yeah, I mean that's life. You have to share space and make it happen. Artists make it happen, and not everyone has a studio. They have to adapt and double up space for a multitude of things. So and again, I had a space for a little bit in the Central West End, and I loved it. But it was weird. I had a number of sessions, workshops, but I couldn't get people across the 270 line from the county into the city, into the Central West End. There was this, I guess, invisible wall that I was experiencing, and people just weren't comfortable, I guess, from the county going to the city. So that really hindered my ability to kind of keep that studio alive, and so I closed it down eventually. And but still working through. It's always, I think, an issue when you're a private instructor trying to get word out about you without beating people over the head. And without wasting their time. So I'm still trying to find that nice mix. I'm not really a social media fan, but I'm on it. It's one of those things that I'd rather not be chest pounding. So you have to find that happy medium of how to get the word out about your availability and your offering without being that person who you're sick of seeing online.
Well, how do you get the word out? What do you do?
Um, that's a great question. Again, it's some social media. It's not, and sometimes, and that's another thing. I really protect uh, my students' privacy. You know, they're mostly underage, and so I don't want to be showing faces. Um, so I am limited as to the photos that I can take to showcase online. But
Mhm.
there are opportunities to show my artwork, to show some of the lessons that we've done, and even from time to time, a good review from one of the parents. So it's just a matter of mixing it up, keeping it interesting, but also word of mouth has been helpful. Posting in specific social media groups is helpful. Trying to figure out when throughout the year kids are available to take lessons. I mean, during the school year, it's pretty next to impossible to get some new students, get a wave of students, because everyone has commitments outside of learning to draw. Most kids are in sports, which is great, but it really hinders, again, just their ability to commit to a weekly day and time slot. Um, so yeah, it's challenging, and I don't think I've necessarily found that perfect sweet spot yet, but I'm also limited in the time I have throughout the week to teach. So I'm pretty maxed out on my hours committed to that. So if something opens up, I'm then able to kind of post online and get someone to fill that spot. So it's a good situation. Um, what about you? Like, we've talked about me teaching a lot. I know that you're a college instructor, right? What are you seeing out there, like, as far as if people are coming in and they're treating it like a professional, like, experience, and making sure that they're respecting your time and vice versa? Like, what's going on there? I wish sometimes that I could teach at the college level. I just don't have the professional credentials to do so.
See,
I've been illustrating for years and years and years, but for some reason I am not allowed to teach at the college level. Maybe that's a good thing for me.
maybe you can, because I'm gonna wrap back. I'm gonna walk back around to that question you asked. But
Okay.
like Wayne Thiebaud, I believe. Wait, did he not have the credentials? Or maybe I'm mistaken. I think maybe he was. Maybe I'm thinking about his. Wayne Thiebaud,
No.
Thibaud,
No.
painted cakes
Yes. I think
on
so. Yeah.
display, painted cakes and
Hmm.
cupcakes and popsicles and sundaes and really thick impasto.
Yeah.
Like,
Makes sells. His artwork sells for millions now.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think I'm mistaken. I know that like he got into either he was able to teach, or he got into a job or a college because of all his experience as like an illustrator. I don't remember.
Yeah.
You might be able to you might be able to use that experience as a way to leverage it. I don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
anymore.
I'm not sure. I mean, I've got a master's, but it's not a master's specific to teaching art. So,
I think you
hey,
just have to have a master's. I don't know if
yeah,
that necessarily has to be in the arts,
yeah,
but maybe having a master's of fine art would uh, look better. But like if it's just a master's and you want to
hmm,
teach college level,
yeah,
and you have a specialize in drawing and the fine arts, I think that might be a way to leverage into that position.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's so interesting. I'm doing things that, and I don't know how many people that have graduated college, in their undergrad, that are even doing what they set out to do.
Yeah.
Like, I graduated, I don't know, 20 something years ago. And the jobs that I was thinking about getting, they look totally different now, or they're not even there.
Yeah.
And so it's always reskilling.
Yeah.
Those people that I guess can kind of rely on what they learned in college, I think are few and far between. But I'm not doing, and so I guess where I'm getting at is sometimes your life changes and the directions and the career paths change drastically. And unfortunately, some of those possibly really good teachers out there, even to teach high school, might not have the credentials. They might have the life skills. They might have the experience of that unique experience that would really benefit the kids, but they don't have that piece of paper, and it's really unfortunate. And I think it's unfortunate that
Yeah, there's a lot of artists out there that you'd like to learn from, but they might
yeah,
not have as you said, the credentials. They might not have that sheet of paper designating the qualifications.
yeah,
But they might be a master of their craft, and we don't because they didn't go to the university. They don't get them a lot of day.
yeah. I mean, I'm I'm teaching art. I never thought I'd be a teacher,
Yeah,
but I kind of grew into it. I'm not an art historian by any means, but I went down another path and started researching artwork out there that people didn't know where it was or kind of got lost. So there's a lot of opportunities out there to do things even later in life that you just like to do, whether it benefits you financially or just spiritually. Um, don't look for people to give you permission to do something. Again, kind of going back to finding art, the art detective, I guess. I started down a path of wanting to find this one particular painting that was basically everyone forgot. It was a painting from 1904, or it was in the 1904 St. Louis World's Fair. And I'm originally from Northern Kentucky, and so kind of cutting away to 2019, 2020, I was really interested in the St. Louis World's Fair. I was really interested in this artist that is from Northern Kentucky, a late 19th, early 20th century artist that really had influence over a lot of other artists, but is relatively unknown outside of that circle. But I wondered, long story short, I wondered, had Frank Duveneck, which is the artist's name, had he ever been to St. Louis? I was kind of researching a lot about him. I saw some cool overlap of where he grew up, the areas that he was from and gravitated towards in Northern Kentucky, what he went on to do. He ultimately went on to teach art. And so again, naturally, I wanted to learn more about him. And I looked in and did some research, found out that not only had he been here, he was here for the 1904 World's Fair, and he was a juror in the for the museum in the art selection. So then it led me down the path. Well, what artwork did he have exhibited there? And he had several. And I found an image of one of them, and I thought, well, whatever happened to this painting? It was owned by the St. Louis Public Schools back in 1904. And what happened to it? So that led me down a path. I didn't intend to become this art detective of sorts, but I was just, my curiosity kind of led me down this path of just trying to find this one painting. All I could find was a black and white photo, several black and white photos. And ultimately, it took about close to a year, but I eventually located that painting as well as a few other paintings and pieces of art that the St. Louis Public Schools was not aware of currently. So I was able to locate it and have it returned to them, which that Frank Duvenek painting I got to see in person, and it had a small tear in it. It was dirty. The frame was different from what I saw. So it's kind of a little bit in bad shape, but it can be restored. It can be conserved. Yeah. And from what I understand, it's going to go back on loan to the St. Louis Art Museum, where hopefully it'll be displayed again. But yeah, it's, again, I'm not an art historian, and I probably couldn't get a job at a museum or teaching art history, but that didn't stop me from not giving a crap and going down this path anyway, and being that gadfly that wasn't afraid to like knock on people's doors and constantly email back and forth and not settle for, well, we haven't seen it. We don't know it exists. Someone could have stolen it. It could have wound up in a dumpster. And I wasn't so much concerned about all of those as I was just finding out what happened to it. And luckily enough, it was still somewhere and in not great shape, but not throwaway shape. And the painting is worth probably, I think I've been told, between $100,000 and $200,000. And the collection that I was able to locate is worth probably $500,000. So the St. Louis Public Schools was really, really happy to get that gift.
Who was? Do you know how it was lost?
Yeah. So unfortunately, at some point in time in the 90s, well, the St. Louis Art Museum had it loaned to them for about 60 years. Okay. And they kept meticulous records. They took great care of it, had it conserved, had it cleaned. So that was really helpful in my search. What happened was, back in the 90s, the superintendent at the time requested for the painting to be handed back over to the St. Louis Public Schools. And that's when things got a little crazy. It was, from what I understand, it was in a hallway in one of the old school buildings that was now, well, then at the time, an archives and records building, where it hung for, I don't know, a decade or so, just kind of out of periphery. And then eventually that building was sold to a private developer, as are unfortunately a lot of beautiful buildings. That's attendance rates drop, things happen, budget cuts, and so on. Well, this building was quickly sold, and the archives and records had to go somewhere. And so they hired movers they spoke with the Missouri History Society, the Missouri History Museum, to come out and take a look at some of the archives and artwork and so on. And fortunately, I was able to connect with someone that took a lot of photos during that process. And after a couple days of looking, he was able to find documentation that painting landed somewhere, and it was the first time I had seen it in color too. So I was just happy with that accomplishment. But it gave me hope that it's still somewhere out there. And so all this stuff had to get moved. So where was it going to go? It wound up going to an interim storage facility that was not heated in the winter, not cooled in the summer. So it, unfortunately, I was like, oh my God, what's happening to this artwork and all these archives that are there? And why did no one know that it was there? Because the leadership changed hands over the years, and there wasn't anyone currently in a position that was there at the time that this stuff was moved, and so it just kind of sat there, literally collecting dust. And I was able to bring it to their attention, and they were able to, I told them the location, and they found it and took a photo and sent it to me and said that they found it and a bunch of other stuff. So it was I honestly didn't think I was ever going to see it, just with all the possibilities of where it could have been.
Mm-hmm.
It could have, I mean, there were things I was told that were thrown away, thrown in the dumpster in the move. And luckily, the only thing that happened during the move was that there was a small tear that can be fixed. But I saw a photo of it in the storage facility, and it was propped up on the floor against the wall with other artwork kind of stacked on top of it, which is a far cry from where it was in the 1904 World's Fair, hanging on a museum wall. What's hanging on that wall now is a Monet water lilies painting, which is millions and millions of dollars. And so I'm hopeful that this painting will wind up back in the museum and on their walls for years to come.
So it's kind of funny because, like as you said, they leadership changed.
Yeah.
They didn't have any documentation of of the storage company or any bills or like
Nope.
payments that were going towards there. Just like what?
Well, I mean, in all transparency or all honesty, they had a lot going on, right? The St. Louis Public Schools is seems like it's always in a state of change, and you'd be surprised how many companies don't keep the documents they should. An educational institution, I'm not sure if they gave up hope before, in early stages. They didn't recognize the painting from the photo. And they didn't, nor did they have time. They were dealing with COVID at the time, and so their time was limited. So I did the work on my end to find it, and it was at that point where they were interested in going to the location that I pointed out, and finding it. So it's a happy ending for everyone involved. But yeah, I mean, I would say I was a pain in their side for a little while, because they were just kind of not happy to, but they were just ready to, wash their hands of it, and because they didn't really have any exposure to it and they weren't worried about it. But once they realized, I think, that it was worth between $100,000 and $200,000, I'm sure their interest increased
a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, and I think I don't see them selling it. Again, I think they're going to loan it. But back in the day, back in the early 1900s, the St. Louis Public Schools bought that piece of artwork, as well as several other pieces of artwork from this organization. And I mean, that was they wanted to increase appreciation for the artistic culture. Mm-hmm. And so there was a series of paintings that they purchased, and this painting in particular, called Yacht Harbor, was the most expensive that they bought. They raised the funds publicly. So really, it's owned by St. Louis, if you want to think about it that way. But it was $300 for this painting. back when the artist was alive. Again, it's worth between $100,000 and $200,000 now. But even soon after it was purchased and hung at the World's Fair, it went onto the wall in some dark corridor of one of the school buildings, where it sat there for decades. And it wasn't until the Cincinnati Art Museum went looking for it and contacted the St. Louis Public Schools, and they found it. Again, collecting dust. So it's been lost several times. It's been forgotten several times. And so you talk about kind of a path to get to where it's at today, where people know where it is. It's on its way to being cleaned and conserved and exhibited once again. It's been through quite a bit of calamity and whatnot. So again, the odds were not stacked in my favor, but I had a lot of spare time on my hands last year. You know, COVID killed a lot of things. Sitting at my home, working from home and getting some breaks here and there, I had a lot of time to make phone calls, and I wanted to win, not only for the artwork, but for myself. You know, it feels good to have a success like that. And I mean, I'm 48 years old, right? Midlife crisis time. So I don't have the funds to go out and buy a Corvette or.
Why not?
Because I'm an artist.
You got
and I'm a teacher.
You got some flat files right there. I'm pretty sure those are worth like like a down payment.
That's true. I could probably sell the flat files for $600 or $700, but no, man.
The flat files are. Well, did you get them new or used?
Oh no, I got them on Craigslist. My life is Craigslist. Yeah,
I need to get some flat files.
I tell you what, you haven't made it in life until you can get some flat files and have them behind you when you're interviewing.
Well, flat files brand new are like $2,000 or something like that. They're really expensive, aren't they?
Yeah. You can find these. I would say for maybe $500-$600 for that big full set right there. But I didn't buy them for that. I bought them for way less. I just hunted. You know, I'm a good hunter. I find the deals, right? I have patience, which is another thing I needed when I was trying to locate this darn painting.
When you called in, were you when you were giving tips to people? Did you call in with like a Batman Bruce Wayne type voice?
No,
Saying,
God, I don't know if I have.
I got an art tip for you. Go down to Chicken Pine.
Deep throat.
Yeah. You're making this like, this person keeps calling, telling us where to find these artworks. I don't
No. I just had to kill him with kindness. Not that I don't know if that was an influence or not, but you know, I'm not going to be an a-hole when I'm calling someone for the 5th time. I know that call to them is painful enough, but if I can be as nice as possible and just have a conversation with them and update them and keep them informed on what I'm doing and the importance of this, then I think that helps. The superintendent of the St. Louis Public Schools was great. You know, he I don't know if he grew impatient of me, but he didn't show it. And if I sent an email and I didn't hear from anyone from the St. Louis Public Schools for a few days, I would just copy the verbiage exactly and send it again. And the museum, the St. Louis Art Museum, was amazing with the amount of information they were able to provide and the care to give me all that to help me on this path. People could have been very, clenched with their information, but I'm not someone that's trying to steal it from them.
Is there any tax benefits to for a school to loan out or lease out an artwork? Do they get something back for it?
I'm not sure of that. I think in the past, there could be times where they might give them, I don't know, some kind of stipend every year. But if they loan it to them, I think the benefit of loaning a piece of artwork to a museum is that they will care for it. They will clean it and conserve it and document it and insure it. Anything under their roof is insured, which makes sense to a lot of people that, you know, in the private world own artwork. It's expensive to insure a piece of artwork that could be $100,000 and $200,000. And so if you can work with a museum to loan it long term, I mean, they probably won't want it for just a year or two. They probably want it for, I mean, again, St. Louis Public Schools loaned it to the Art Museum for 60 years. And it wasn't until they got it back that they lost it, they ripped it. So it's often in better hands and protected when it's loaned to a museum.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Yeah. It's, you know, and I found another one recently that the Cincinnati Art Museum wasn't aware of its whereabouts, and they had done some research and drew a blank. And so, you know, again, I got online, made a few phone calls. It took probably 2 or 3 months, but that one was a lot quicker and a lot easier to find. But I found it. But that is a private individual. They don't, you know, there's something called a catalog raisonné, which is basically a collection of information on as much about every piece of artwork from a particular artist as possible. So Frank Duveneck, who's from Cincinnati and donated a bunch, or Northern Kentucky, greater Cincinnati area, donated, before he passed away in 1919, donated a lot of his artwork to the museum. And so they're kind of by right the keepers of the Frank Duveneck catalog raisonné. And they have a lot of information on the provenance of some of these pieces of artwork, even if they don't own them, where they exist, who owns them. And so I was happy to be able to contribute to that catalog raisonné by finding the owner of this piece of artwork. And again, it's a private person. They don't want their information given out publicly because that potentially jeopardizes, you know, someone coming in and stealing that piece of artwork. I mean, there could be tax implications. There could be, you know, depending on what they want to do with it, if they want to keep it long term. I've learned a lot just in finding a few pieces of artwork about the art world, about implications. You know, a lot of the fact that museums get pieces of artwork stolen all the time. I'm not saying every museum does, but there are artwork heists, like the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in Boston back in the 90s over St. Patrick's Day. There was a big heist there, and they stole, like, I don't know, 8 or 9 pieces of artwork, and they've largely not been seen since. And there are rumors that the Irish Mafia was involved, the IRA. And why do people steal artwork that they probably cannot sell? A lot of times they're stolen by criminals, by gangs, by, you know, mafia, criminal circles that can then use that artwork to leverage to help reduce the sentence or reduce the, reduce the sentence of some of their mafia cohorts in jail. I mean, if someone's guilty of murder, they can reduce the charges by leveraging, well, we've got this Rembrandt and we're willing to give it back to negotiate down terms, then they go that route. But yeah, again, I didn't know any of this a few years ago until I started reading up on it and researching it.
Is there a way to like? Is there like art detectives, official art detectives that make like money doing this as a living?
I'm not sure. There is a guy. His name is Arthur Brand, and he's helped locate some really famous artwork, some statues that were owned at one point by the Nazis, a Picasso he was able to locate, and he's able to he's got a large network of people, including criminals, that that he speaks with, and he's able to kind of hunt down these pieces that are a lot more famous than anything I could find. But I'm not sure that he makes a ton of money off of it. He does it more out of the love of finding it, about the ability to find it. I'm not sure if there's a market out there for it. I mean, there could be something relating to like researching provenance to make sure that a piece of artwork is truly painted or created by that artist versus, attributed to it. Artwork that's attributed to Rembrandt is going to be priced a lot differently than artwork that's proven to be painted by Rembrandt, whether through the provenance, and provenance being the who's owned that painting along the life of it till now. If you can show that and document that, that's definitely helpful in proving the validity of a piece of artwork. There's science behind it, whether they can sample it or take test samples, infrared of scans of how old the paint is, what were the paints used back in the 1400s and 1500s versus today. They show up differently under infrared and black light. There's a lot of different ways to prove the authenticity of a piece of artwork. I would have no clue on how to make that a business, but I'd be open to taking on a challenge like that and finding those resources to prove something like that. Whether I could make money off of it, I don't know. I've spent a lot of hours doing this largely for free, just out of the love of it. But at the end of the day, if it's in a museum and I can go appreciate it, and it hasn't been there for decades and decades, and it opens up exposure for that artist, that I love knowing about, then to me that's self-sustaining.
Do you think with regards to showing a paper trail of owners, do you think NFTs might have a role in the future of that?
Say that again. Say that in a different way.
Do you think blockchain technology will have a role in showing ownership for future artwork?
Yeah.
Or ownership?
Blockchain technology could very much. Now, NFTs, I think, just in my passive understanding of that, and how people are purchasing NFTs versus original physical art.
Yeah.
I don't understand. I don't appreciate the facets of that. Just as I'm not really interested in some of the more contemporary art, because in my mind, it ebbs and flows, and I'm not willing to put money towards something like an NFT that, I mean, you have to wonder why someone would buy, I don't know, essentially, I'm dumbing it down here. Essentially, like a JPEG of a piece of artwork that ultimately has their name on it, on the provenance of it, on the back end of it. I just am uninformed of what you would do with that. Is it more about bragging rights? And that's kind of how I feel with some of the more contemporary art that sells for millions and millions of dollars. There was a news story a few weeks ago about an invisible statue that sold for I think it was like $18,000.
Well, that was my idea. The artist stole it from me. So.
And someone's suing that artist for some reason.
You stole my invisible sculpture idea.
Yeah, exactly.
It's me suing the person.
Or the banana with duct tape, right? And what they're buying is not the banana and duct tape. It's the instructions. Well, it's the instructions on how to hang a banana with duct tape, when to change it, how high to hang it, and that kind of crap. That is just ridiculous.
It's very important.
Yeah.
You got to have the banana at just above eye level.
Yeah.
At a certain angle. Okay. Very specific. And the bananas cannot be a certain type of age. They can only be a certain type of they can't go over a couple weeks of age.
Has to be a Chiquita. I mean, you're joking, but that's like some of the same instructions.
Yeah, I know. And
it's like having one of those little digital pets back in the 80s or 90s. It's like takes so much care. Not only do you have to, spend money on a stupid piece of digital junk, but you have to push buttons on it every once in a while to feed it and all that. It's in my mind too much of a hassle. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of largely conceptual artwork. Not to say there are people out there that are willing to spend millions on it, but I tend to come from the vein of appreciating a lot of illustrators, N.C. Wyeth and Norman Rockwell and Arthur Rackham and Howard Pyle and those individuals that helped to tell a story visually instead, whether it was illustrating a book or a cover of a Saturday Evening Post. And what I really appreciated, not only the storytelling and the layout, but it was that ability, that technical ability to draw that through however many layers of paint or whatever they put on top, it still showed through that technical capability to make, to give expression to a face, to make something look three-dimensional in a two-dimensional format. Those things have always fascinated me and influenced me. And no matter what I'm doing in life or with a career, always going back to that one thing that I feel like I'm strongest at, which is drawing. And, how I got to drawing wasn't through an art school. It was just a lot of self-instruction. I couldn't afford to go to an art school. My portfolio was accepted, but then in the same breath, they didn't have any scholarships at that time to give out. And so the way I figured it out of how to kind of give myself an education was to take as many classes as I could at Northern Kentucky University, which is what I was where I was going at the time. I would go to the zoo on the weekends and draw the animals, do gesture drawings. I would go to the museum every Saturday because it was free and learn from 400, 500-year-old masters how to draw. And so that was largely my education. But it was really my commitment and my drive to do that every week. that built up my skills. Like unfortunately I've learned different terms and oh, that's a thing. Like different terms like core shadows. I learned that so late in life, and I learned the importance of it so late in life. I don't know if that's reflected in some of my drawings during my college days, but I've learned that that's a thing to look out for when you're drawing. And I didn't learn things like that, or the importance of edges, or a lot of things that unfortunately I might have learned going to an art school. I learned that late in life. But
what's a core shadow?
A core shadow
Yeah.
is so it's basically if there's a sphere, an egg, let's say, and it's on a white surface, there could be a main source of light that's shining on that egg, okay? And anything on the egg that's kind of closest to that light source is going to be the brightest, right? Well, typically, since that egg is sitting in an environment, right? There's secondary light that's either bouncing off of the surface that it's sitting on. It could be the sky that's helping influence this additional light onto the object, but there's that secondary lighting that's kind of coming up on the other side of that object. And the area right in between that's furthest away from any of those light sources, it creates this shadow-like ribbon, I'll call it, that kind of wraps around that egg, and that's a core shadow. And so it's really, I say it's really important. It's important in that sense that that's something that you can add to a drawing that gives that level of believability. It's that illusion of 3 dimensions on a 2-dimensional piece of paper. And again, I don't even know if I know I didn't know about it. Did I incorporate that into my drawings like in college? I'll have to go back and look at some of my sketchbooks. But I guess what I did in college was look at something and try to replicate it.
Yeah.
Whether I knew a term or knew that something specific should be there or not. So in a sense, I'm teaching a lot differently than the way I learned. I feel some of these students are getting that education that I never received fully.
Yeah.
Knowing some of the terms, knowing things to look out for that can improve their drawings in their teens, right? I think that my improvement in my drawings improved a lot slower over the course of my 48 years here on Earth. But if I can help some of these younger students kind of improve their drawing skills exponentially in a year or so, they're going to be heads and tails further than I am at my age. And it's just so cool to see what their possibilities are, in whether they want to take that into like more of a fine art capacity, or whether they just want to have that skill set that they will not lose over their life. It's just fun to see some of the students grow.
Yeah.
But it's a lot different than how I learned to draw, right? I had to hustle, so to speak.
The information is more available. It's more in your face, especially if you're looking for it.
Yeah.
It's way easier to find.
Yeah.
I wasn't introduced into planes.
Yeah.
Until later on.
Me either.
And I was like, wait a second, this makes so much more sense.
You're not drawing a person, you're drawing planes. Or if you're painting, like every brush stroke really represents a plane change, something turning in space, reflecting light and color differently. right? So it's yeah, that's a perfect example of something I didn't consider until later on in life.
Yeah, I didn't learn that until late in
Yeah.
life, and like perspective. Not until I was started teaching
Mm-hmm.
did I learn perspective to the level that I know now,
Yeah.
which is incredibly not like expert, but like
Mm-hmm.
much more elaborate than how I was taught. I was taught like the simple, you just put the points on the left and right,
Yeah.
the horizon line, and your lines go to those points. They weren't
Yeah.
they weren't taught. They didn't tell me that they were called lines of convergence
Uh-huh.
or whatever phraseology they had. It wasn't taught that way.
Yeah.
And then they didn't explain to me why is it when I get to a certain area, my shapes get really weird,
Mm-hmm.
like because of the cone of vision, like it goes outside of that frame. That's once your shapes gets outside of that imaginary circle in your perspective frame,
Mm-hmm.
your shapes are to get those angles are going to become very, very sharp, and it's not going to look right. No
Yeah.
one ever told me why that happens or
Yeah.
what was the reasoning behind that. Lots of weird stuff. Lots of like stuff I wasn't is privy to or
Mm-hmm.
yeah privy to until later on.
And that's not anything to be ashamed of either. Like the fact that you draw as well as you do should be proof in however you learned how to draw. And I think that I think we as artists or we as drafts people um, are always still looking to learn, and we're looking at other people's artwork, and yeah, I'm very jealous of some people's artwork, but it inspires me to want to learn to be better. I don't think there's I don't I don't think there's a level of competition in uh, wanting to be better than this famous artist out there, because I guarantee if you meet that artist, they're usually so nice, so um, giving of their techniques, of their time. I've met a lot of different artists, and that have had, the illustrators that have stuff in Time magazine and Mad magazine. I've met someone out in California who's unfortunately now passed, but um, was an artist more of a fine artist, and gave me some great information and great inspiration, and was willing. I mean, I took the time to fly out to California to see him, and was so much more than cordial. And so, but there is a level of competition, I think, as well, but just not on the same level of competition as like it's me against you, like a hockey match or football or anything, something like that. There can be, people have different personalities, type A, type B, whatever, and they can all be artists. But I don't know where I'm going with that thought, but yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But so what were some other things that we haven't talked about that you learned later on? Like, so we talked, you didn't know what core shadow was.
Yeah.
Talked about planes,
Yeah.
perspective. What are some things that you wish you had known earlier?
Well, I still wish I knew how to paint better than I do. That's something that I never got a good grasp of. In fact, color is really confusing to me. I'm not colorblind or anything like that, but I want to know so much about. I want when I paint, I want there to be a process. I want that step 1, you do this, you get the darks in. Step 2, you get the lights in. Step 3, the warms and the cools, like when to look for those. But I'm just not there. Like, how can there be a warm blue? That just boggles my mind. Or a cool red. It's, to me, kind of the equivalent of flying a helicopter. You're going this way, you're going this way. You've got all these things to be doing, and my brain just doesn't think about that. And so, in a way, me kind of boiling my art down to drawing is my way of saying, I can't focus on color right now. Someday I will, but there's a lot of, so I'll do a drawing and spend 10 or 15 hours on it sometimes before I get really ultra bored and of it. But and I do it a lot of times on newsprint. Most of my work is done on newsprint anymore, and it's there are those moments where I'm like, God, I wish I would have drawn this on something that's not going to yellow and wither in like a year. But I'm also not, I don't have that high level of like, I want my artwork to be around 200 years from now. Yeah. I don't have that. I like other people's artwork. When I look at my artwork, I think a lot of artists have this. I look at my artwork and I see all the flaws. Some artists have studios and they hang all their artwork in there. I think I have one piece that I have full time back there, but it's behind a lot of other stuff. I don't like to see my own artwork. I like to be inspired by other artists. And so I'd rather hang other people's artwork up in my studio. Are you like that? What do you do?
Sometimes I'll have I don't have it in here at the moment, but sometimes I'll bring in trinkets, just like this random like toys or like little, they're like trinkets, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like some people that the guy that if you were in an office that had like all those crazy little things on their desk.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes I'll have like stuff like that. We all
collect that stuff. We all collect it. I used to collect lunch boxes. I went through a wave of that, and I have some kind of like hillbilly things, trinkets, like souvenirs that you would find in Branson or in Appalachia, or like these. I used to collect these Japanese-made hillbilly bobbleheads that were made out of paper mache. It's just so interesting to see how people interpret, the hillbillies, right? Like I grew up in Kentucky, and it's always interesting. Like I remember going on vacation to the beach, and I'd say tell someone I'm from Kentucky, and they, or somewhere else, go on vacation to an amusement park or something, and I'd say I'm from Kentucky, and they'd say, well, why are you wearing shoes? So there's these goofy stereotypes. And so a lot of my artwork early on, my lowbrow stuff, was really an exaggeration of those stereotypes to show the stupidity behind these stereotypes. So a lot of my artwork was like these old time hillbillies in like overalls and straw hats and no shoes on, doing like, just stupid things, whether they had two heads or just like two teeth in their mouth or whatever. It was just, again, really meant to show the ridiculousness of how society views people from Kentucky and from the Midwest. But anyway, I collect junk like that that's not worth a lick to most people, but I love it. I love to be surrounded by it. And so what kind of trinkets do you collect? I
used to collect action figures.
Okay. Like what? Which kind?
Let's see. Star Wars.
Okay. Now, is that stuff you brought in from your youth, or did you start adding to it later in life, or what?
I haven't collected like that since my youth, you know.
Yeah.
But like that's
But
like
you
this
didn't throw it away. You didn't throw it
No,
away, and your parents didn't get rid of it. Fortunately.
yeah, I got boxes of it. I could be. You ever see the movie 40-Year-Old Version?
Yeah. Yep.
I could be like him. I could probably, if I wanted to, I could sell these and get back some money in return.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, like what was it like near the end? It's like his friend's like, how is he able to pay for this wedding? And he's like, oh, he sold all his toys.
Uh-huh.
You know,
And how, like, it's funny how, unboxing is a thing nowadays, and they have videos about it and everything else. Like, if we unboxed a Star Wars figure, we ruined the value of it, right?
Yeah. And I got some Star Trek figures. I got Star Wars figures. I got Todd McFarlane Spawn character.
Oh yeah,
figure.
the stuff that just like looks good but falls over when you breathe on it.
Yeah, you can't.
It's so off balance.
Yeah, because like all these accessories and such.
Yeah.
So I used to collect that. I used to collect keychains for a while.
Uh-huh.
I still have it. I'm probably going to toss it. I don't know what I'm going to do with it because like it's just taking up space.
Yeah.
The older I've gotten, the more minimalist I want to be. You know.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. There's two sides. I think there's two sides of you getting older, but you want to. I don't know, like the stuff that you've had for years, you want to hold on to it, right? I don't see you throwing away your Star Wars figures. Are you?
Maybe selling them.
Maybe selling them. Okay.
Maybe sell them.
I did that one time at a garage sale where I sold some stuff that I wish to God I did not sell, but I was heavily influenced at the time to get rid of some of my junk, and I regret it. I have seller's remorse.
That's why I want to keep it. I want to use it for something else. That's why when we were talking prior to this live stream, I was like, I want to make a wall here.
Yeah.
And just have like a display behind me that looks really cool.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interactive. It's kind of neat, you know? And I thought, well, that would be something that I could do. You know, I thought it'd be generally people that put like action figures or comic stuff on their backdrop for their like live stream generally are always talking about comics or movies and such. And, you know, I don't know if that would go with my theme, but you know what? I have them and I thought it'd be kind of cool, you know, because I got a lot of them.
Yeah.
Like the people. Like there's some people on YouTube that if they saw the collection I had, they'd be like, I want some of those.
Yeah, yeah. I bought comic books. I'd go to the drugstore every week and I'd look for, comic books. And this was, I don't know, like in the early 90s. And I swore to myself, I was like, these are going to be worth so much money someday. And I'd say the most expensive one that I have now is probably worth maybe $10. And so it's I don't even know what to do with them anymore. They're kind of, I think, stacked over here somewhere, sitting on the floor.
I got a lot of comic books too.
Yeah, but yeah, the things we invest in, we have such grand ideas of getting rich when we're a kid, and yet we're pursuing art. We're buying comic books. We're doing these things that people probably warned us against. But
well, you look at
it's the richness. It's the richness of having some of these things that we can go back and remember, and having skills that we thoroughly enjoy. And I think that's the value in what we do. It's not how can I trade this in for something else, or what can I how much can I sell this for? It's something that, whether it impresses people or not, it I think warms our heart doing it, drawing it, or if it's what we collected, it's going back to a time. Let's face it. Most of us had great childhoods, and it's a potent memory that we can remember just by looking at one of these comic books. Even music nowadays, even though there's more music channels out there, we hear the same 20 songs, whether it's a recent song or whether it's like that one Def Leppard song played over and over and over and over. So what we felt initially the first time we heard that song, or the second or the third, that memory is gone from that song, right? We don't get that visceral response that we did, the when we hadn't heard that song in years. And so a lot of I don't know. I think even kids nowadays, they hear the same music, and I don't think that music. I think that they hear that music so often that it's hard to tie a memory to it, because the I don't know, the first concert we went to, or the first this or the first that, is so often tied to a song, and then we skip 10 years later and we haven't heard that song in a while, and then all of a sudden it comes on and it's just like boom, the lights are on.
It's like I think maybe it has to do with like the speed of media nowadays, where like it's just so fast, you don't get like that emotional response to music or anything like that. This is what I've been doing lately is every morning when I do my art commissions, I'll turn on like music that I listened to when I was a kid or in high school, and it acts as like a nostalgic reminder.
Yeah.
But it also acts as a motivator to work and to not waste my time, like in a weird way, because like I was like, when I was at that time, I wasn't listening to music and drawing. I was just listening to music and horsing around, and now I'm listening to music as a motivator to put a fire underneath my butt, so I get myself to work, because like otherwise I'm not going to have anything to show for it.
Yeah, some people need music when they work out, right? Some people need music when they draw. I've had office jobs, right? And if I sit there in an office with no sound, no music, I go nuts. I've been in environments where it's quiet as a library, and I put a set of headphones on, and I had someone walk by, some old school person, and they're like kind of joking, half not. They're like, "What are you listening to, Aliens?" And I'm like, "Are you serious? Like, there is this vibe here is so neutral, so vanilla, so septic, that, yeah, I mean, music's a big part of my life. And speaking of collecting, I still have mostly all the CDs that I had growing up in the 90s. And I have a lot of the tapes that I had in the 80s. But unfortunately, I don't have a system that I can pop a tape in and listen to. But I do have a bunch of CDs, and I listen to a bunch of those. And I like some of the kids I teach. I'll have some of this music going on that I haven't listened to in a long time, and they're like, "You play really good music." I'm like, "Man, that's when music was good." It's they like it because it's new to them. It's here I go off on a tangent about today's music, like I'm some 90-year-old. Back in my day.
I think there's something to be so I was visiting family, and one of my family members was on her electronic devices.
Yeah.
And And I was remarking later on because there's so many. It was like it was almost like it was like the stuff that you'd see in cartoons, in like comic cartoons in like the '90s or like early 2000s, where like they just had screens everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, but like there was like 4 screens around this individual, and I was like, that's a lot of screens, you know, like because that is like and now me being older and more pragmatic, that like, you know, I was remarking like, you know what, I the only time I need 2 screens is right now when I'm doing these live streams where it's actually beneficial to have 2 windows.
Mm-hmm.
But now like uh, as you said, back in my day, like there is some spoiledness to like the access to hyper technology. It's not even hyper technology. It's just technology now.
Yeah.
That we're not like most of this generation is not. They don't understand what it was like to have like to wait for a video being on your computer.
Yeah,
You know,
loading.
like
Dial up. They don't know what dial up is.
Like literally, what to wait for a website to open. You know, that's like beyond them. Like to be able to like the ability to have 4 screens working simultaneously. Well, that's like a miracle of technology, but also it's it just goes to like I think I don't know where I was going. Maybe I was going like a rant about like complaining about like technology and such. But like I think I was trying to segue into like the there's something everything that's old is new again. You know, like the manual like thing that's becoming hip now, or kind of coming hip,
Mom
like
jeans and all that. Yeah.
yeah, to be able like, oh, if you want to listen to music, you gotta put it into a container, take this object and put it into a machine that's going to read it for you, not your iPhone or Android that's going to basically stream it, and you have access to all of it.
Well, what I've learned is that we become our parents, not necessarily exactly like them, but we become those old people that our kids think are older than we are. And we're preaching about how hard we had it in our day and how easy they have it in theirs. And it's going to be the exact same thing for them.
Yeah, like it's amazing.
30 years from now. But I think there's a lot of choice in the world right now. I mean, you can quite literally look up most anything online and get access to it.
Yeah.
And it's not that people's bandwidth or mental bandwidth you can only consume so much. It's that they don't pay attention as much when they have a lot going on. You can only pay attention to one thing at a time. You can overhear something over here, but you have to I think you still have to focus. But choice isn't always a great thing. I mean, there's a book called, I think it's The Paradox of Choice. And basically it says that the more choice you have, the more likely you are to go back to your one thing that you've seen, eaten, experienced before. Just like a menu, like the Cheesecake Factory menu is like 80 pages long. And what do? If you've been there more than once, you order the same thing. You order the same cheesecake because you're afraid that whatever you order the next time is not going to be as good, and you're going to have buyer's remorse. And so instead of having 10 things on the menu, they have 110 things, and it's not always a good thing. We didn't not that we had the choice of getting online when we were kids, but we were also able to focus a lot more. We were able to daydream. I don't know if kids even know what that is anymore, because they fill their eyes with stimulus when they're bored, instead of and that fills their boredom, instead of just being bored, staring out of a window, daydreaming, thinking about something that you want to work on. I'm sure
there's
our
some value to that, you know?
Yeah, I'm sure our kids will be just fine because they'll grow up in a similar environment, and society will change to adapt to that. But in the same breath, like I've had some of my best ideas just being bored as hell, and sitting in a car for 6 hours, driving back to Kentucky to visit my family, and having those 6 hours to myself, essentially, and just, thinking about something and letting my mind wander, versus having some idiot YouTube star unbox something in front of me and show me his Lamborghini, right? I don't want to live his dream. I want to experience my own reality. And so
I get the feeling you watch a lot of unboxing videos.
No, that's just my point of reference for when my kids are online. I call it watching their stories, like an old lady watching her soap opera or something, and they get really rattled and they get pissed off at me. Oh, you're watching your stories. Can't you get off your phone? And they go, shut up, Dad.
That drives me bananas. Those YouTube celebrities where they're like the only thing that they're offering is showing everyone else their lavish lifestyle that they are able to sustain, because people like seeing people have lavish lifestyles, and it's like this positive feedback loop. They post a video. Watch me buy a Lamborghini, and I'm only 10 or whatever, however old you are, and everyone's like, this kid's only 10 years old. He's able to buy a Lamborghini. He can't even drive the thing, but he's gonna buy it anyways because he got so many darn videos on, so many darn views on YouTube. 5 million clicks, 5 million views, and he can able to each one of his videos, and he's just able to do that because of that. And I was like, gosh darn. Meanwhile, the people that are talking about ideas, they have to ideas. They have to grind a lot. And I mean like a video a day or 3 videos a week that's an hour long and scripted, and they have to work really hard to get maybe a 1 million followers, but someone else who basically does, as you said, look at me do something, do this, this outlandish thing, with some nice editing, and I have 20 million followers.
Yeah, it's 90% of it, I think, is just fake. Like back in the day, like in the 90s, remember that MTV show Cribs? Half the time, someone that was showing off their crib was renting that space for the week, or renting it for the year. It's all just it's all fake. I think it's a lot of it's just fake. Even again, going back in our day, those bloopers, right? Those blooper TV shows, America's Funniest Home Videos. I think half of that was fake anyway. People would act like they're slipping on a wet surface, and just to get a laugh and just to be able to send it in and get famous. There's what we see on YouTube, and then there's the reality behind it. There's parents pushing their young child to unbox toys and try to get sponsored by Hasbro, Kenner, and all that good stuff. I don't know. Again, we're going off on a tangent here, but it's therapeutic for me, so I appreciate it.
There was this family that had a YouTube channel. They had 1.4 million followers or something.
Yeah.
And it turned out that the family, the kids that were in the video, were being held against their will in the basement. and then they would be brought out to do videos, and then put back in the basement.
Wow.
I'm like, what?
Yeah, it's it can be crazy, I'm sure. Like, I don't know.
But go back to your notion where people just to daydream and to be bored and to let your mind wander.
Yeah.
I think there's some value to that because, like, excuse me.
Yeah.
There's some value to that because, like it's weird because now like today, have an original character is like a big deal.
Yeah.
They so much so that like people are like, oh, this is my OC. I'm like, what's OC? An original character. And me when I was a kid, I was like, almost all my characters were original. You know, like everything I was drawing was original. You know, unless I was drawing like an X-Men or Magneto or a Wolverine. You know, but I wasn't. That wasn't like the brunt of my portfolio wasn't Wolverine or Magneto. It was like, you know, just like poorly drawn original characters.
Yeah.
But now, like, to have a fully fleshed original character is like a big deal, and I don't see it as that because, you know, for the most part, many of us were doing OC characters.
Yeah.
You know, and perhaps maybe that's going to the originality factor is going to separate individuals further and further as time goes on. Like, you know, it might just be like there's going to be people that just are able to quote unquote able to come up with their own characters, and then the other group that are just going to be able to basically draw other people's characters because they're not able to picture in their mind's eye how to just make one up.
Yeah. Even, you know, I mean, even if you look at movies nowadays, everything is a remake of something that was quite possibly already a classic, and they put even more money into it, and it turns out most of the time horrible. And
almost verbatim too. A lot of these remakes are verbatim. Or you think they're just going to be? It's going to be a not a remake. You think it's going to be a reboot, but the reboot actually is just the same movie, just better CGI.
I'd rather them take like something that might have been a great script, but then really horribly produced the first time around, and remake that, than to mess up, you know, some of these classic movies.
RoboCop, Ghostbusters, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. What other ones have they remade?
I mean, and there's like, you know, like Rocky, I think they did. Rambo, they might have done. I don't even know. I see some of these and I'm like, why are you messing with that? You know, and what was wrong with it the first time? They just want to drain it for what it's worth, and in the end, it loses any of the luster that the original had. But they're hoping that they can bring it to a new audience, younger audience, and again squeeze that last little bit of juice out of it before people grow to hate it because it's the remake is just repulsive. But people don't. I don't know. The new is it's a rarity anymore. I think
it's hard. I think the to create something new in those entertainment sectors like the fields is getting harder and harder because people don't want to. They don't want to take a chance anymore. Like, I don't know how the music industry is doing right now, but back in the day, back in my day, no, from my understanding, like if you would they'd sign you on if you were good enough as a musician, if your album did okay, they'd sign you on to do another one. If the second one was like, they're like, well, okay, and then they allow you to do another one, and hopefully your numbers would go up. But now it's like you almost got to be a 100% sure thing.
Yeah. Or you have to be really attractive.
Yeah.
And then they're willing to cut you some slack and put auto-tune on your voice. By
the way, what's your OnlyFans account?
My OnlyFans account? I don't have one. Are we plugging a porno site?
I thought you were gonna plug your OnlyFans account. I thought that was leading towards this.
Yeah. No, I don't. I don't have any of that stuff going for me.
I thought about making one.
Yeah.
And like but it being like a gaff and telling people to join my OnlyFans account.
Yeah. Just, you could put stuff on there besides boobs, like it's like the same idea as I get Playboy for the articles, right? I look at OnlyFans just for the how-tos.
Do they have how-tos?
I think
I think they're making it. They're trying to. OnlyFans is trying to go more mainstream, and I hear a lot of those spicy characters are getting a little scared.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know.
They make a lot of money on there. The spicy individuals on there.
Some do, I'm sure. It depends on how you want to take your nude career. Speaking of nudity, do your classes involve figure drawing?
Yeah.
Do they?
Well, I don't teach them, but
what was
our school does teach them.
What was your first experience drawing a nude person?
Funny experience?
First experience. Whatever it was. I mean, whatever happened.
Well, I first started.
You've got to have a story behind it. You've got to have a story.
When I was uncomfortable. My first time, but the next time, some of the more memorable.
Cough.
Some of the more memorable, like there was one class that I had, and oh my god, it was like there was a few of them, but one was, I think the guy was new, and he was just trying to do like these most outlandish poses, and one of the poses that he set up, he got on his back, and then he got on his shoulder blades and neck area. So basically, his shoulder blades and the top of his neck was on the floor. Then he took his elbows and bridged them behind on his back, so that he could pivot his legs up in the air. And then he did like a split.
I mean, was that like a 30-second pose or a 20-minute one?
I don't know how long it was. All I know, it was long enough for one young lady to just walk out.
She's like, was he like God. Spread eagle, like junk in the face?
Yeah, it was like that.
Yeah,
and it was something. It was worth a little laugh.
Yeah.
And then there's other ones that are really gross. I don't know how gross. Whatever. We'll just say it. I'll just talk about it. One time, a male had like
cottage cheese. What are we talking here?
like fluid.
Oh God! Like he had just like peed or something.
Fluid hanging off of of his parts.
Yeah.
Kind of like if you like saliva, you spit out and suck it back up. But it wasn't on his mouth.
Oh God. Wow.
And I'm like, oh, what is that?
Yeah. Shut up and draw it.
It's like, you need to take a shower, dude.
I some people, mainly girls, I think, would draw, like if we had a male figure model, they would draw everything but that area. And our teacher would call that out. He had his instructor from back in the day would smoke a cigar, and like if he didn't like what you were drawing, or if you were like trying to rush it or something, he would take his cigar and put it out in your drawing. But my instructor was very blunt, very vocal, and would call you out. So he definitely embarrassed his fair share of students, but I learned a lot from him. But yeah,
I can see that.
Yeah. My first experience with a figure model was, I just remember this older lady, a lot overweight, and just having a robe on. And I'm sure I blushed at first, just like in weird anticipation of seeing an old lady naked. And she disrobed. And
this is recorded forever. You know that, right?
Oh, I know. And just kind of being kind of disgusted in a way of seeing, but shocked, disgusted, all these, sudden like reality of it all as she disrobed. But then 10 minutes later, it was fine. 10 minutes later, I was like, that's the weird thing, I think, after you've drawn, and this is more for like people that aren't used to that world. After, when someone disrobes, yeah, there's that initial shock, right? But like 20 seconds later, when they're doing a pose or whatever, and you're not even looking at them in a sexual way, you're looking at them for like, oh, what's the best perspective to get the best lighting? I don't want to have to draw foreshortening because that's harder than hell to draw. So I need to move over here to get a better pose. Or if you're instructing, like you're teaching figure drawing or you're hosting a session, you're helping guide them and like what the best pose is. So it's very clean. Figure drawing is a very clean experience. People are joking, people are laughing, you're talking to the model, like it's a very natural experience drawing someone like that. But to the outside world and to someone that hasn't done it before and is experiencing it for the first time, it's definitely weird, right? And to your point, you remember a lot about it. About that first time.
You're right about the everyone. Some people would completely avoid the whole pubic area.
Yeah,
I remember some of my experience was we were painting the model, and it would always be like there's this deep shadow just kind of getting darker and darker, like core shadow forming down as it gets lower and lower until it's like a fog
or a blur,
like a cloud. And then I remember I was pointed out that I was the only one that actually painted the
junk,
right?
Yeah.
But not only that,
below the trunk.
Yeah,
the junk below the trunk.
Not only that, but this was during a time when I was painting candy and food.
Yeah.
And so what I did was I painted it like I took a bunch of blow pops, and I painted some blow pops kind of floating.
Yeah.
Around in the painting, and I purposely put a blow pop sucker right next to the junk area.
Sounds like some Robert Mapplethorpe stuff.
And I just had a huge laugh out of it because it was it was a pretty well painted blow pop. I was pretty impressed with myself for doing it. so quickly. For two, it was just funny, you know.
Yeah. Did you have something like you should have created like a blow pop to replace the junk or a candy cane or something? I don't know.
Maybe in the future I'll draw something out like that. I don't know. I think that'd be like too literal.
Yeah.
You know.
Or if it's Halloween, the fun size candy bar.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I hate drawing hands and feet on figure models because they take so damn long. Like, I don't mind drawing hands. They're hard to draw. Feet are hard to draw sometimes. But do you find yourself, when you draw a figure, if you only have 20 minutes, you're not going to worry about the hands. You're going to draw like, draw to the wrist or draw, it could be floating on something. Do you draw feet and hands?
It's been such a long time since I've drawn like the figure with intent.
Yeah.
You know, all I've done really is portraits and like still lifes and cactuses. But like, I think if when I had a short amount of time, what I would do is it depended on how much time I was doing and how like organic the drawing was occurring. Like if my eyesight is, if that person's like angles are just right, and I'm able to get like the positioning down really quickly. Yeah. Maybe I'm an hour or two of studying, like practice and warm-ups already in. Yeah. So I already have some like warm-ups. What I typically would do is maybe I treat them like mitts. You know, like gestural mitts.
Yep. But there's the thumb and then there's the mitt. Yeah.
And then if I had more time, I'd do like the Vulcan hand. You know, where like you could separate them a little bit. Yeah. You know, and still have them kind of get the shape of a hand, but you're not like defining each finger.
Sure.
You know, it all depends on how much time I have and how well everything else is going. You know, but like the simple like mitt shape where you have the angle. You know, just something to kind of show a little bit of form would probably be the way I would go about it. That's if I had ample practice and studies ahead of time. I don't know. It's been such a long time for me to like remember those strategies that I was implementing.
Yeah. So you teach. What's your favorite thing to teach? What's your favorite day? Is it torso day, or is it like cast drawing day, or is it like critique day, or what do you?
My favorite thing to teach is perspective.
Okay.
Because it's the most step by step.
Yeah.
Thing to teach that people understand. My second favorite thing to teach, only because I like drawing in this way, is reductive drawing.
Yeah, that's so fun.
But I don't particularly get a good outcome from my class because it's so counterintuitive from what their experiences are.
Yeah. And for those listening at home, what is reductive drawing? It is
reductive drawings is it's a way of pulling tones out. Or erasure. Yeah. So what you do is you take my way is you take out a vine charcoal, which is a soft vine, which sheds and flakes off real easily, and you mass out a sheet of paper. And massing out is just a way of saying, I'm going to make this paper a mid-tone gray. And a mid-tone gray is somewhere in between black and white. Like it's a middle tone darkness. It's not too bright, not too dark. And that way you have a base with your drawing. And what you would do with that is you would start out by taking a kneaded eraser. A kneaded eraser is basically an eraser that's kind of like clay that you can change the shape of. and you use the kneaded eraser to pull out erase the brightest parts, or the the lightest parts in the object, and then you start adding darker tones, your mid-tones, and so forth. I like it because thank you, appreciate it. We have someone on the chat section making some comments there. Really,
okay.
It's been a while since I've seen you. So I like that type of drawing because, me personally, I think it's the most forgiving out of all the mediums.
Yeah.
Because you can't do that. I guess you could do it with pencil. It'd take a little longer, but it probably wouldn't be as successful. And Vine charcoal, people, when you first start out, Vine and you're a newbie or you're noob with Vine charcoal, you're not good. You're not going to be good.
Yeah.
Because you just don't understand it. But once you get past that learning curve, you'll find out that it's way more forgiving than a pencil drawing. At least in my opinion, simply because with the Vine charcoal, you can soften up the lines or soften up any mistakes. With pencil, if you make a mistake, you can erase it to an extent.
Depending on how hard you push down.
Yeah, you can erase it to an extent, but if you make a mistake with a really dark tone with pencil, good luck. If you make a mistake with a really dark tone in charcoal, you probably can knock it up back to mid-tone. You know? So I enjoy that as the second thing to do.
Okay.
The next thing I like teaching is some sort of grid style drawing.
Oh, like copying an existing drawing or something and doing it in a grid format to help them keep proportions, or what?
Usually it's for design, where I have the class do a kind of like this elaborate grid-like drawing where they take some cartoons, they mix and match the cartoons onto the same frame, so that you could let's say that you had 4 characters that are from or let's say you have 4 characters, or let's say you have 1 character.
Okay.
What you could do is you could take, say you have Daffy Duck. You could take that character of Daffy Duck, blow it up 2 times its size on 1 frame. And this, let's just say that you have, Spirited Away.
Yeah.
That's very popular with the class. They really like that show, or like that anime. So let's say that you take that ghost character from Spirited Away. You could put that character in the background and make it as repeating pattern with a grid.
Yeah.
Make it kind of like it's polka dots, but only it's that ghost character's face. So I show them that you can take these characters, or take these a grid, and do more than just copy.
Yeah.
But you can reconstitute. You could put in other cartoons from different shows into the same frame. While before it wasn't even in their mind to even do that. It was more like, let's just take this cartoon and blow it up.
Yeah.
But with the grid, you can put multiple characters from different genres into that.
So is it helping with their layout process, or their idea generation process?
It's something fun. They get something that they get to do things that they get to draw characters that they enjoy, or have some sort of affinity to, and they also learn how to use the grid in a more of a more elaborate way.
Okay.
Like more critical, more technical way than just take a picture and put it on here.
Yeah.
Another one was doing the same thing, but getting like getting a Renaissance style painter or painting, getting a portrait and doing the classical classical painting study, but only in every panel.
Yeah.
They do a different type of mark with their pen.
Okay.
You know,
that's cool. Yeah. Create
so,
kind of a whirlwind of different styles or techniques.
Yeah.
To make it to build it up.
And people like those, but they're very time consuming.
Yeah.
I when I first started doing it, I made the mistake of having them do it on 18 by 24. And it's just too much work. I mean, you could do it but you can, if they were doing it the way that I was doing it, which was do like 1 square a day.
Yeah.
You know, you could do it in the lot of time that I've assigned for it. But typically, that never came to be. It was more like, it's due tomorrow and you have 1 square.
Rush. Yeah. Okay.
You know, I'm like, it's not going to look pretty.
Yeah. Yeah. I tell you what, reductive drawing, to your point, is challenging, but it's fun. I have to agree with you. That's like one of the more fun classes to teach is reductive drawing, because it, to me, illustrates that idea that drawing is more than just adding to something. It's also removing. So it's almost sculpture. It's almost like you're taking a lump of clay and pulling away from it, and you're pulling chunks away, and then you're refining those. So vine charcoal is a perfect medium to use because it's very forgiving. You can blow it away sometimes. You can smear it in. You can darken it up. It doesn't like to stay on your paper, but if you can manipulate it enough and take one of the smudge sticks and kind of get it into the teeth of the paper, it darkens up a little bit. So that's a fun one to do, but it's fun. Challenging.
It's fun, but like as I said, like because it's like it's so foreign to the student.
Yeah, they're not used to thinking in terms of that.
They almost don't want to try, and because it's not fun, and they don't want to make a mistake, or I don't know, or they don't understand it. They don't want to try, or because they don't understand it fully.
Yeah.
It usually yields. What I typically have like they just do the bare minimum mid-tone. They pull out some highlights and they draw a contour line around it, but they don't do the core shadow. They don't they don't do any other value besides the mid-tone that they've already established. And it just it doesn't look good because they don't spend the extra time. I mean, and this also goes with the exposure to like media over and over again.
They want something quick.
Patience is one of the biggest skill set you could have. It's one of the biggest skill set that you can have.
Yeah. And being able to kind of walk away from a drawing and reapproach it later, and being able to step away from your easel and get a fresh perspective. Take your eyes off of it for a few minutes and look back and there's all these techniques to building up a drawing and seeing it in a new way, but people are like on to the next thing. Okay, let's half-ass this and then move on.
Are you familiar with TikTok?
Unfortunately, yes. Yeah, I have an account and I've done a few TikTok videos, but I am so out of touch with being able to produce something of better quality. And honestly, I'm just not interested that much.
Yeah.
But it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch other people do stuff.
They're like 15-second videos. They've expanded it now, but like they first started out, which is like 15 seconds.
Yeah.
You
Or
know?
that was more like a Vine video or something. Is
Vine is the same, but like Vine's they shut that down. That was like Twitter, right? That was Twitter owned or something.
Hell, I don't know.
And,
we're dating ourselves. Back in my day,
no, Vines
was something we climbed up and swang on.
No, Vines was cool too. It was the precursor to TikTok.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like they set the scaffolding for it.
They did. They definitely did. And then TikTok's Chinese owned, I think. Yeah,
I think so. I think they like it was first called Musical.ly or something like that.
Yeah.
And they shifted it.
And then people just use it the way they want, right? You can create a product, but you don't have any control over how people use it, how people consume it. And so it just kind of got manipulated and changed. So
it's gotten very interesting, you know. I was thinking about algorithms today, because TikTok's very algorithm based, but I wasn't thinking about it. I wasn't thinking about TikTok in that regard. I was thinking about YouTube.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about like how like I'll watch one video and then YouTube's feeds. This goes along with that thing that you were talking about, choice.
Yeah.
Where like
we think we have choice, but everything's fed to us.
Yeah. So I was getting kind of PO'd. I was getting angry. I was like, man, every time I watch one video that piques my interest, YouTube feeds me another video that piques my interest just enough. Now I'm thinking to myself, is this really what interests me, or is it just interesting enough for me to like watch it?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking to myself, it's probably only interesting enough for me just to watch it. Not because I think the problem with it is that they need like I don't know if they have it. They need like a rando button, like just like a Scrabble button.
Spin the wheel.
Yeah, just give me something, and that might interest me. Yeah. But like but now all it is like, in order for me to get new content that I might be interested in, I have to delete all my history and all that, and delete it and then start like search something random or something.
Yeah, it's like you have to. I don't know. Or like a Facebook ad. God forbid you click on it, then that's the only thing or only type of ad you'll see for the next month or two when you scroll through your feed.
Yeah,
like they think you're interested in just that one thing.
It's funny because it's like I'm pretty sure I'm more dimensional than the way YouTube's portraying me right now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It is what it is. You know, I'm my 9 to 5 or 8 to 5, so to speak, is in marketing. And I'm to the point you mentioned a while back, you mentioned kind of going more minimal. I'm the same way. Like I am bored with social media anymore because I know how it works. I know what they're trying to feed me on it with advertisements, and even with trying to create my own videos for TikTok. I don't care that much to even look into trying to improve the few videos that I put on it. It was fun for a moment, but I stopped caring a while back. And I wish life were like this. All I want to do is just draw, right? Why can't I just draw? And people will notice that I draw and ask me, hey, can you teach my kid? Wouldn't it be awesome if it was like that? But there's so much more into trying to be successful or be popular than just doing what you like. You have to work the system. You have to understand SEO. You have to advertise. On some of the social channels, you have to optimize for this and that, and it just sucks the fun out of just being able to kind of do what you want to do and organically grow an audience. And I think I feel like, again, being 48 years old, I'm to the point where, like our parents were when they got to a certain age, they just stopped being interested in knowing how new technology. Like I can't even figure out how to set up my TV half the time. It's not just plug and play. There's so much into it, in setting it up and assigning channels to it and everything, and platforms and all this. And I'm like, just someone else do it. I'm kind of to that point in my life where I'm just not interested in marketing myself. And I think I do better at marketing other people. We all do better at promoting other people than talking well or speaking well or promoting our own selves. We're our own worst critics at times, and it's hard for us to see past our studio to be able to kind of talk about ourselves in a good light that's not kind of cynical or self-doubting. I do that all the time. I'm just like, I'm decent at drawing, but there's still a lot I have yet to learn. Or when I look at my drawing, I see all of the failures within it. We're a lot of us are harsh on ourselves, so it makes it more challenging to gain some distance and see ourselves from how other people might see us.
Yeah.
Or see what other people might, the value that other people might see in us. So it's challenging. And I'm, again, at that point where I feel like I've got enough clients to teach right now. Could I grow it? Sure. That would take a lot of effort that I don't know that I'm interested in pushing out. I've got a life. I've got kids. I've got responsibilities, and I'm doing what I like. I have diversified what I'm doing. I'm not hyper focused on just doing this one thing, but it's my life. Instead of being just this one thing, I do, find missing artwork. I teach drawing. I do marketing. I do this and that. Those are all the things that make me me. Whether I can market that and package that, I don't know. But individually, they all fascinate me, and I'm happy to do those in whatever capacity I can. And whether I make $1 million from it or not, at the end of the day, I'm still interested in those individual things, and I would do those for free if I could live off of that. So, yeah, again, a tangent, but speaking of teaching and charging and time involved and so on, one of the challenges, I think, to teaching privately is that there's so much out there, so many organizations that basically give away art lessons. You can learn a lot about it on YouTube. And I think that's good to an extent, but just like anything else, why can't we put a premium on things like art lessons, right? Why does that have to be something that's, the catalyst for social issues? Or why does it have to have that weight? Why does it have to be something that you feel needs to be given away to anyone? Why do we feel like we have to say anyone can draw, right? It's there. I feel like it does it somewhat of an injustice to say anyone can draw, um, anyone can create art. Art, what is art? You know, it it gives technical things like drawing a black eye in a way, and it makes people are amazed at it, but then they don't really have a use for it anymore. Um, so it's somewhat, I think, in a way of um, a not a lost art, but
There's a use for it. Just people don't see the where it's being used. You know, people don't see like the packages
yeah,
of their action figures. People don't see the action figures that someone
true.
designed. That no one says like who designed, like, as mundane as it is, someone designed a a a shampoo bottle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Someone made that shape.
yeah,
You know, someone made someone drew the designs for your car.
mm-hmm.
No, the lines on your car are not done by nothing. They're done by someone,
Yeah,
and you have to draw to do that. And everyone's like, "How are you going to make a living to be a draw as an artist?" Like, well, there's many ways.
mm-hmm.
You, like, there's the commercial route, and
Yeah,
then there's the fine art route.
mm-hmm.
There's the consulting there. I don't know.
Yeah,
There's more than one way now than there is back in the day.
yeah, yeah.
We have a few questions from one of the guests here. What do you have any famous artists that inspire you?
I do. Yeah, I think we alluded to some of those earlier on, like N.C. Wyeth, Norman Rockwell, Arthur Rackham, Howard Pyle, Dean Cornwell, and many of those are illustrators. And so technically they're illustrators and not artists, and the illustrators would get that joke because a lot of people during that time thought illustrators weren't true artists because they were subservient to the brand that they were illustrating for, or or whatever. But that's really any artist that's technical in their draftsmanship of um, drawing. You know, those are the individuals that inspire me. And throw some paint on top of it, and I'm just floored. That's, you know, again, drawing is one thing, but when you can create an illustration and get color involved and get lighting and they didn't have, you know, people back in the early 20th century. Think about how limited they were in the resources to really build up a drawing, with like having to formulate lighting and pose people, and heck, some of them didn't have even photography to be able to capture that and then refer to it later. They had to pose those people and paint them and draw them and lay them out. A lot more challenging than we have it today. But those individuals really influence me. Those ones that can make something look like something, as simplistic as that sounds. To draw something in a two-dimensional surface and make it look three-dimensional and give it some life, and give it some emotion and give it some story behind. Those are the people that really inspire me. And there are some contemporary ones, some that are very alive today that influence me, like Benjamin Bjorklund, I think that's how you pronounce his name, or Nicholas Uribe, people that call themselves more painterly or more painters than drafts people, but just their techniques. I see a little bit of myself, or a little bit of what I want to be, what I want my style to be, through them. So there's a little bit of jealousy, but more inspiration. And Nicholas has a series on YouTube that has, I'd say, maybe 100 videos where he'll and he does lately he's been doing one a day, Monday through Friday, and each week he picks a theme, and he'll kind of speed up a drawing that turns into a painting, and he'll be talking after the fact and dubbing that over throughout the 15-20 minutes, and just some of the most interesting ideas or concepts or things that help validate things that I've been thinking about, the frustrations of drawing and painting, or kind of, making more mistakes than not. Like it's so amazing to see an artist that has such a skill really question his capabilities, just like I do, just like most artists do. That imposter syndrome.
And those are edited?
Yeah, they're edited. I mean, he'll take you through and he does these oil paintings, these quick oil paintings in a sketchbook, an unprimed sketchbook. So he's all about, like, I teach on newsprint, right? I tell my students all the time, we're not here to draw the Mona Lisa, so don't worry about making mistakes. So he's all about the process of it, and not necessarily about the result, but the results are usually pretty amazing comparatively. So yeah, you have to look him up. I forget what his YouTube channel is. It's like A Painted Life or something like that. But yeah, so I've got some contemporary influences, but more than not, my influences are long dead, and are typically illustrators. I did illustration work on and off for about 15 years, doing covers for news weeklies like the Cincinnati City Beat, New York Press, and Riverfront Times here in St. Louis, and did some magazine spot illustrations. Did that full color, again, questioning my sense of color, or trying to boil it down to as much of a process as possible so that I didn't have to think too much when I'm trying to create these. So I did that for 15 years, started to have kids and raise them, and that was more of a side job anyway. And to me, I got burnt out on it. And I took 6 years off of drawing altogether. I finally realized after 6 years, oh my God, I haven't drawn anything in years. And so that's when I kind of picked up the pencil and started doing it again. And it was one of those things that quickly I caught up to speed. It's like I hadn't missed a beat.
What do you find?
I was burnt out on, I was getting paid for these illustrations, but I was getting to the point where I was phoning it in. I really didn't care to see my artwork on a cover of a newspaper anymore, and it was occupying, the process that I used to create these paintings and illustrations could be like 15 to 20 hours to create a cover, and I was just getting bored. It wasn't generating a lot of money because it's a newspaper. So that it's kind of a trade-off. Like, you can kind of create what you want, but they don't pay you a lot, right? There aren't many guardrails, but they don't have it in their budget to pay what they would for, a national magazine or a book or something like that. So, and again, I was starting to have kids. And so these weekends that I was spending creating an illustration, I was taking time away from seeing my kids, which was some of the only time that I had throughout the week. And so I just stopped calling publications, and eventually they stopped calling me. It was one of those things where if I didn't hear from them and they didn't hear from me, and it was fine. And I took 6 years off because I was burned out. It wasn't fun anymore. And it's only when I realized it and it started to become fun again. And teaching is fun for me because I do get that opportunity to draw and to stay fresh when I'm teaching the kids. Because again, I draw alongside of them. I'm not just standing over their shoulder telling them things. They can look at me while I'm drawing and see how I'm approaching something. And sometimes it's garbage. I'll throw it away. I have a milk crate over here that we just dump our stuff in afterwards, or they're welcome to take it home. And sometimes I'll take it and I'll be like, God, that was fun. And I really drew something that I want to continue. And some of my drawings stem from initially drawing those in the class. And sometimes that's the best kind because you really don't have, you're not approaching this thinking I got to make every mark perfect, right?
Yeah.
It's a lesson. So you're just like throwing stuff down. And that's when you're the loosest is sometimes when you produce the freshest work and stuff that you can kind of build on. A lot of my stuff will start from a gesture drawing and I'll build it on from there.
I find that when I'm doing a demo,
Yeah.
I'm actually I'm slower because I'm always stopping to talk, kind of articulate my thoughts.
Yeah.
So
sometimes I don't get very far in a drawing.
Yeah.
And you have to kind of get up several times and talk to your students and help improve their drawing. Sometimes I feel like I hope the parent that's watching, us draw isn't thinking that I'm just doing my own thing, right? And on the flip side of it, and that I'm not helping them. But those are the moments where I'm looking over at the student and they're drawing and I'm like, they're doing a great job. I'm just going to leave them in their space. But yeah, it's, believe me, there's a lot of drawings that I do that I don't finish. It's just meant to be a lesson. I've drawn that image 10 times before. And most of it winds up, even somewhat decent stuff, I will wind up in the garbage. And the best thing to do is when you have a really decent drawing that you've maybe worked a couple hours on, or even an hour, to take that and rip it up or crumple it up in front of a student.
That's a good idea.
And throw it away, shows them that it's all a learning process, right? Like they might be really impressed with what I drew, but to me, like it's just a learning process. We can do this over again, right? We can make another one. The idea is to learn things so you can replicate it, so you can do that more than one time. So it's less about luck and more about process. I've had some students are like, whoa. I'm like, dude, rip it up. Like Sinead O'Connor with that Pope picture on Saturday Night Live. It gets a lot of reaction when you rip up something that other people are like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Right.
I think I should do that one time, a couple times. That's a good idea.
You should just to see what kind of reaction you get.
The thing is, like, one thing about me as a draftsman is I'm very inconsistent. Like some days I'm just like making garbage, like hot mess, and then other days I'm like, what? Where were you yesterday?
Yeah. Well, I mean, my students, I teach them at the same time every week. Yet what I bring there changes. It's different. I could be drawing something I drew last week and draw it completely different. But I think part of that, I wouldn't say what you draw is junk. I would question that. I would say maybe you're bringing something different to it. Maybe you're more tired going into it. Maybe you're trying to be a little looser. But
there's some of that happening.
But I wouldn't think something that you're drawing, you're going to be like, oh my God, pull my hair out. I just can't get it right. I mean, maybe I have some of those moments sometimes with like hands or feet or like drawing the toes and trying to make them look or whatever. But I think you're probably more critical, you know, of your drawing than most people would be.
It's often like the thing about as me personally, I'm always doing. I feel like I'm always doing something slightly different.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like changing a valve or a dial on one
Yeah.
area,
Yeah.
and this just that small little change
Uh-huh.
is causing me to kind of like backtrack like a year
Yeah.
or two or three, because like now I'm trying to formulate a standardization on how to approach it in this manner.
Mm-hmm. To get the same results every time.
Yeah, and so that's probably why.
Yeah.
And sometimes, unfortunately, I've done this during live drawing sessions online. I'm like, yeah, I'm choking.
Oh man,
choking, guys.
I have to apologize. Everyone gets their money back. Everyone, yeah.
And so like and because I'm doing something a little bit differently, or I'm I ran out of soft line charcoal. I'm using extra hard, and it's not.
Yeah.
This is I'm doing a slightly different approach.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's I find it's always a new experience, and I'm always trying to tweak things each time, and that can kind of cause problems because it's not like the same. That's why I have like that respect for like the atelier?
Yeah.
Like where like it's step by step, and everyone that goes there is going to make the same effect. You know, and that's I appreciate that concept of like you're going to go here and you're going to be able to draw really, really well, and it's going to. But the only downside is no one's going to know it's your work. It could be the person next to you.
But I think you're not training robots, though. Everyone's going to bring their own subtle influence to their own mark making. So I think there is a little bit of, I mean, they might very well teach you a certain process. One thing I don't like about more of the traditional classical way of training, especially for kids, is the cast drawing process, where you take something like a classical sculpture of a face or a cast of some famous, face or like a hand or something like that, and people draw that to make it look as realistic as possible. There are certain barge drawings that people will copy, and that's fine. That's perfectly fine. But for kids, I think that to them, it's probably as boring as drawing a still life of white cubes and shapes, spheres and whatnot. Like, they're probably like, so what? Like, why am I doing this boring crap? So, I mean, I do a little bit of that, but like instead of a cast of, Beethoven's Death Mask or something like that, I have a cast of Don Rickles that they can draw from. Or I don't know. Most of the stuff, we just dive into real people, instead of drawing shapes first and then working with training wheels up to a certain point where you're drawing a face. We just dive right into faces.
So that's like a first class?
Well, I'd say my second class is kind of like telling them about retraining the brain and doing a few exercises like drawing something upside down, drawing something without looking at what you're drawing. It's really meant to kind of throw you off in a way, to reiterate the point that we need to move from drawing how we think we see something to really changing the way we see things in terms of planes, big dumb shapes, as I call it, how to start a drawing, given time constraints. Like in the real world, you're given time constraints, right? We don't always have 2 years to work on a project. Sometimes we have 20 minutes. So what can you get done in a 20-minute drawing versus a 1-hour drawing? Or what can you get done in a gesture? What's your goal of what do you want to get out of a gesture drawing versus more of a hyper-realistic drawing that you have
That's
more
where
time?
knowing yourself helps a little bit too.
It's knowing what you're capable of.
Yeah.
And it's being realistic with what you can put down on paper in a certain amount of time. When you're doing a gesture drawing, you're really trying to focus on the energy of that pose. Empathizing with that pose, whether it's someone standing on one leg, even in a photo, you can really empathize with, I ask them to get up. Okay, stand on one leg for a minute or imitate that pose. Where do you think it's going to start hurting 20 minutes from now? You can feel certain muscles burning, and that level of like subconscious thought process can come out in your drawing. I don't know how it does, but really being able to empathize with someone and how that pose, like the arch of their back, really, in my mind, comes out in your drawing in subconscious ways, and contributes to it versus someone just trying to draw an angle and get that angle right. It's going to come across as stiff and it might be polished looking, but it'll be really stiff and not heartfelt, if that makes sense.
What's your philosophy on art, on drawing?
Gosh, that's a big open question right there. I think a lot of things about drawing. I think you have to put the time in, whether you're talented at it or not. I think talent only gets you so far. Talent is really just your interest in it, your interest to do it and work on it and get better at it. I don't know if I necessarily believe in God-given talent. People used to tell me, God-given talent you have. And I'm like, well, I've worked hard as hell to get to where I'm at with this. And it's just because I have the interest in doing it. I remember as a kid just drawing up in my room, no one around, just making stuff up in my head or looking at something and drawing it. So you just have to it's the only way you get better is not just a class, not just a once a week, 1 hour a day or 1 hour a week session. You have to want to do it after hours, during the week, on your own. Find the interest. Some of my students have that interest, some don't, and I can clearly see the progress from the ones that do. So I think you have to be interested. Not everyone's interested in drawing.
I once heard this phrase in a Gold's Gym sauna.
I can't wait. Let's hear it.
No, it was I was in the Gold's Gym sauna, and these two dudes were talking about sports.
Yeah.
And training and working hard, and I heard this quote, and I was like, that's a really good quote. I didn't talk to him. I was just thinking in my head, that's a good quote. I'm going to take that quote.
Yeah.
The quote was, you can outwork talent. So you can outwork talent. And I thought, like, well, that makes a lot of sense because the talent that everyone like people third person looking in is proclaiming can be outworked. You can work harder than that person who is supposedly more talented than you.
Yeah,
and that may not be the case.
Well, some people pick up on things easily. Some people you work with and they're still struggling. So there's some level of like do they get it or do they not? So I think it has to be a good mix. You can work at something, you can try to figure out how to dance for years, but if you don't have the right tools, or if you're just not, I don't know, if there's something has to be in you, not just to try to continue learning to dance, but to just have the knack for it. What that knack is, I don't know. So it has to be a little bit of both, I think. So yeah, but the more I thought about it, over the past 15 years, I would have these moments where I would just be like down on myself and be like, what am I good at? You know, what's the one thing I'm good at? And drawing was that thing. I mean, yeah, there's plenty of people that are better at drawing. But that was one thing that I could point to and say, even someone that probably didn't like me could point at that and say, yeah, I hate him, but he's good at drawing, right? What's that one thing or one or two things that even someone that hates you might compliment you on? And for me, that was drawing, and I never thought I'd teach. But that's what it turned into. And so again, I didn't go after that from day one of college. I went into a different direction. I went into graphic design. And I didn't pursue anything related to it as far as teaching goes. But I knew I was interested in drawing, and I pursued that in my classes. I got the nerve up to go to the art academy and show my portfolio to someone. I've gone and introduced myself to artists that I wanted to meet and learn more about. So it's like, what do you do on your own to make it happen? And if I wasn't interested in art or in drawing, or if I was half interested, there's no way I'd care to do that stuff, because in the moment there's no real benefit. But collectively, all of those little moments that I remember have helped get me to where I am in drawing and in teaching. So,
do you have any advice you could give to other artists?
Yeah, learn a lot of different things about drawing, about art in general. Learn what you like, learn what you don't, learn about what you like. Never be happy with what you're putting out. Know that there's always something different or something more than you're capable of. And I selfishly, I would say, learn how to draw. If you look at people like Picasso, he was considered by many to be a prodigy at drawing. His early works were amazing when he was like in his teens.
Yeah.
He was painting and drawing these beautiful, realistic images. And it was only from that foundation that he felt like he could explore other routes. And, so the Picasso that we know today isn't the Picasso that he started off as.
Yeah, people don't know him that he could do that. Not a lot of people knew that he was a master draftsman. Like, he painted really good.
Mm-hmm. But he had to go through that process.
Yeah.
And those that want to paint like Picasso really at the end of the day can't, because they don't have those same experiences and that same foundation. I think another artist that I know put it in a way, he's like, anyone can be a one-trick pony, right? You could be an artist that does splash art, and that's going to get you through until that trend is over with. And then what are you going to do, right? Someone who can draw can adjust their style to, in essence, you're kind of reducing it to, like splatter painting or whatever, cubism. Like there's a lot more that you're capable of, and that comes across when you draw something, but you can adjust that style, remove from it, and adjust with the trends and stay popular, over the course of your life, versus just having a moment in the sun. So I think that's true. Whether that gets you, whether that carries you through your life or not. I mean, there are people that might do a splatter painting that make millions and can retire. I don't know, but I have a lot more respect for those that I know that can draw, and I can see that in their paintings. So,
what about the artist that can draw and also does splatter paintings?
See, that's the thing. If I know they can draw, I have more respect for them. But I'm not sure that art schools even teach strong foundations anymore. I've heard that it's very conceptual, and I don't know. I've heard, again, I haven't gone to art school per se, so I can only repeat rumors. But just some of the work that I've seen come out of art schools, it's very conceptual. They're kind of trying to climb to here without getting some of that foundation that I think is kind of critical. I mean, you're drawing right there. It's quick drawing. You do one of those every day. But like there's so much that so much training and so much discipline that comes out in that you're probably like, yeah, I just, I threw that out in an hour or 2 hours. So I don't see any of that, and I can't necessarily appreciate any of that. What I'm seeing in a lot of people's conceptual art. And maybe that's the laziness in me too. It's a stroke of laziness in that I don't want to have to research what you're trying to say. I want to be able to like encounter a painting and feel something besides, God, anyone could do that. That's not what I'm going for when I look at a painting. I want to be like enveloped in it. And I want to be able to experience the story of it without reading about it. I don't need a banana with duct tape on a wall. That's just going to infuriate me. If that's the feeling that you're trying to get out from people that look at it, that's fine. But I have no respect for that.
Also, it can also I might be stepping on people's toes.
I mean, he wants to go to a gallery and get pissed off. No one wants to, right?
It can devalue the person who's been grinding on a drawing, building up their drawing skill.
Yeah.
And a dude walks up with who just happens to have a network or a concept. I don't know, like a little bit of probably a strong network to get into those shows, and duct tapes a banana to a wall and then sells 3 of them for like six figures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Meanwhile, regular expert draftsman is trying to sell a drawing for $100, and you're getting customers that are like, why is this $100? And you're like, why is that banana $600,000?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think most of the art world is crap, and you can quote me on that. So
most of the art world is crap.
Yeah, there you go. So at the end of the day, I think you draw what you like, you paint what you like, whether someone likes it or not. It could be more about personal for you than I don't know.
I just wrote that down.
Hey, that's perfect. Did you write it on a banana or the duct tape?
Just a piece of paper. No.
Okay. And same with collecting. You know, what do people collect? As far as, I mean, again, could be trinkets, could be artwork. Do you collect contemporary stuff? Why do you collect it? Is it about bragging rights and spending a lot of money on it? Or is it something that you really, is it something that you, a repo or reproduction from Bed Bath and Beyond that looks good in your bathroom? Like, whatever you like. But I tend to like and value artwork that, this is going to sound bad, artwork that is painted really well. I can see the image. I can, I know about the artist and they're dead. I like dead artists because if I'm collecting a piece of art, obviously they can't produce more art, right? It's not a Jeff Koons that can create more, or
what are your thoughts on Jeff Koons?
Well, I read something recently that his stuff has really stopped selling since COVID. That there's more of a trend of artists with social issues, painting around social issues or creating artwork around social issues, less about luxuriant artwork that could be seen in a multi-million-dollar home in the hallway.
Well, not your multi-million-dollar home.
Yeah, not mine. I'm not a big fan of Basquiat either. So I don't think that someone's crappy life or really interesting life necessarily obligates me to appreciate their artwork. And when something's over popular, I don't like it even. I like it even less.
That makes that. I mean, there's something to be said about that. Like the less popular, the more you want to veer away from it. Like, oh no, too popular, can't watch it.
Yeah, I don't. If I like something, I like something, and even like, I don't know, like Bob Ross. For a moment in time, I loved his shows. And they were like watching golf to me. I would fall asleep, or he's just really peaceful. But I've never liked his artwork. It's great and empowering to some that his motto basically is everybody can paint. That opens up, opportunities for people to feel like they can. But I mean, there is some magic in what he did, but and definitely some process in what he did. But that's an interesting thought. Would I hang a Bob Ross piece in my house? Not because I liked it, but because it met the requirement that he was dead. So maybe I am, I don't have to have both of those factors. Maybe just being dead helps a little bit. And that sounds so bad, but
it is a little, what was it, like morbid or like dark?
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't throw a Basquiat in the garbage. That sense of ownership would be compelling. But would I be able to relate to it now? Probably not. I really gravitate towards late 19th, early 20th century American realism. In a lot of the research I did around Frank Duveneck, he was an artist that was very much, John Singer Sargent called him the greatest brush of his generation. And the fact that he's largely unknown outside of Cincinnati, where he grew up.
That's a really good compliment.
It's compelling. Yeah. I mean, he was popular in the day. He was competing in art shows alongside, um, you know, William Merritt Chase and Whistler and those people, those types of people. And he was popular. And then, from what I've researched, his wife died suddenly and tragically in 1888. They had a 1-year-old, I believe, at the time, and his life changed, obviously, and he moved from, I think it was Paris at the time. He lived a lot over in Europe, whether it was in Italy or Germany or in Paris, and he kind of packed everything up and moved back to his hometown of northern Kentucky, of Covington, Kentucky. And he had inherited an amount of money because his wife and her family were affluent. They were kind of Boston socialites originally. So he had enough to live off of, but he largely stopped producing fine art, if you'll call it that. He changed his style a little bit. He taught at the Art Academy, Cincinnati Art Academy, so he became a teacher and really had more influence as a teacher, I would argue, than influence as a fine artist. Because again, he's largely forgotten, but his influence on what they call the Duveneck Boys, which was the circle of artists that he taught at one point, and those students that went on to become other famous artists and teach and, kind of carrying on that tradition, is immeasurable. And so, I really gravitate towards that kind of era, really leading up to Impressionism, that American realism of the late 19th and early 20th century. I'm a little bit of a history buff too, not enough to be able to spout off dates or anything like that, but it really helps me, appreciate that era, to see what was going on in the art world, to see things that were happening, with like the plague, like cholera and things like that were happening in the United States at the time, in the early or the mid 1800s. That was one of the reasons at one point that he went back to Europe, I think, was because the outbreak was so bad here. So just things that influenced him, things that influenced the world at the time, all have a say in the art trends at the time, leading into Impressionism. So I'm just kind of, these are things that I really never paid too much attention to maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I just kind of accepted art as there at times, art periods as there, without wanting to even know too much about them or what influenced them. So it was that opportunity to kind of get into the headspace of one particular artist and read as much as I could about him, and find out about his world and the things that were going on. And that led to more books and learning about other artists. So that's another thing that I would say, that I would suggest aspiring artists to do, is to learn about other artists. I can't tell you how many of my students have never heard of Rembrandt, or Monet or Impressionism, things that you and I take for granted. We just know to be. And so the influence of generations past is being lost I would argue, on kids these days. And I mean, shit, just take a kid to a museum. Introduce them to artists that they've never heard of, whose artwork they've never seen. And you'd be amazed what you see them gravitate towards, or how they might describe what's going on in that painting. They don't even have to know the historical events influencing that genre at the time, but they get something out of that, and I guarantee they walk away kind of proud, a little proud, that they know something about another artist that they didn't know before. And they feel like, some people have old souls, I think, like when they listen to some of mom and dad's music, right? Some people gravitate towards that. And it gives them a depth, I think, that not a lot of kids have. And they, if you point that out and allow them to recognize that when you go to a museum, when you go experience artists that no one in their class knows about, like that's empowering. And it's good for them too, because it gives them a level of depth, whether they want to pursue art or not. It just gives them a level of depth in understanding the world. I mean, even if it's just like wanting to know more about history, wanting to know more about European history or American history or whatever, just expose them to more things than they are being assigned through an algorithm on YouTube. So that's my soapbox I need to step off of.
So what would you say like are three like things or like skills that artists should have or should be doing?
Yeah, okay. I think, technical drawing skills, we can just check that box, right? Everyone should have a good foundation of being able to draw something and make it look like what they're drawing.
Mm-hmm.
I would say round, exposure of artists in and out of what they enjoy, so that they can make their own decisions, whether they like those or not and why. I'm sure you've been able to detect over this course of the interview that I'm slightly opinionated in certain areas, but I'm allowed to be, because everyone has an opinion, but to make an opinion not based on background and just making an opinion for very thinly veiled reasons, is not as respectable as being able to kind of make an opinion and state why, and have the background to defend that. So I think being exposed to a lot of different artists in and out of your comfort level, of your interest level, is probably a big thing, because it might turn you on to some style or some technique that improves your game, because you don't want to necessarily be just like another artist, right? I don't want to be the person that can just paint like Rembrandt. I mean, that'd be great, but like, I want to be able to mix influences to create something that's uniquely my style, and my vision. So don't just gravitate towards one artist and want to replicate that, because you're probably going to fail at it, right? You can get close, but you're not that person. You're not influenced by the same thing. So why not take multiple artists that you like and enjoy and mash that into your own style, make it uniquely yours.
Mm-hmm.
So that's number 2. Gosh, man, I think just practice, and more practice. Because if you're doing it a few times a week or whenever you can because you enjoy it, then you're not only going to get better, but it shouldn't be a pain in the butt to do, right? We all manage to do things in little bits and pieces of time, right? We don't need. We rarely have the luxury of carving out a full Saturday to draw.
Yeah.
Right? That's what sketchbooks are for. Go to the museum and sketch. Go to the zoo and sketch. Just set aside time that's not dedicated to technology, and allow yourself to be bored and imaginative. Daydream. Find those moments of the day. Recognize when you're the most creative and when you're the most creative, and dedicate some time in those moments to draw and get better, and to paint and get better, and to just improve your game, whatever that is. So those are kind of three loose pieces of advice I'd give. I mean, I'm sure there's 1,000 more that could come across in over the course of lessons, right? Half of the stuff is up in my head, and it's not on a slide deck, but it'll come out in that moment when that moment hits me when I'm teaching them something. I'll be like, oh yeah, this is what I wanted to tell you. This is something that I used to practice 10 years ago, right? So that just comes with experience and comes with, striving to get better. And if you stop learning, then you're dead. If you're not, what do they say? If you're not swimming or moving forward, you're kind of dead in the water, right? So just constantly try to improve. I don't know how much better I've gotten since college, but damn it, I try every day. And, I'm still interested in getting better and improving. So that's what I would suggest.
Ryan Greis, thank you so much.
Pierson. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for taking a large chunk of time out of your day to talk to me.
I'm sure we have maybe 2 or 3 snippets that are golden moments. Probably talking about nude figure drawing is one of them. That was a golden nugget that'll
those could be on a TikTok short.
Yeah, man. No, I appreciate it. This has been fun.
Where can people find you?
Well, my website is drawn, DRAWN .studio. I'm on Facebook under Drawn Studio, and that between those two, you can find out where I live and work and breathe. So that's probably the best avenue. I live in the greater St. Louis area. If anyone is interested in drawing lessons, hit me up. I start off every conversation with, show me some of your work, because it's a relationship. When I teach someone to draw, it's a commitment. And if they're not at a level where I feel like this is a good thing, they might be so advanced that I don't feel like I have anything to give them. Then, it's a conversation. So at least get that conversation started. And if you're interested in improving your drawing. So, yeah.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Really do appreciate you. Thank you so much, everyone that was watching. I appreciate you. We both appreciate you. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button before you leave. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
You're doing a good thing, Matt. Thanks.
Oh, thank you. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.